According to a report by Gun Free South Africa, gun violence is the leading cause of murder in South Africa.
You have about 9,000 guns that are annually reported to either have been stolen or missing.
We have a problem with the influx of guns into our society.
Another gruesome mass killing here.
It's the availability, it's the easy access to the weapons that's the issue.
Let's make it difficult also to obtain guns. It's so difficult to get a licensed firearm, but it's so easy to get illegal firearm.
We're going to get every gun, we're going to find every suspect.
Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. It's great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, the Hawks say the sentencing of former PRASA Chief Engineer Daniel Mthimkhulu for falsifying his qualification and lying about a job offer from a German company to bump up his salary is a sign that those who are corrupt and fraudulent will be jailed. But what about public officials who have been implicated in state capture? When are we going to see them in orange overalls? The Hawks head, Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebeya, will speak to us tonight. Also on the show, the former PRASA Group CEO, Lucky Montana, is now a member of parliament for the MK party. So what's attracted him to this organization? What impact does he hope to make in parliament? And what does he make of the fact that his friend and former colleague that he has fiercely defended in the past is now going to jail for 15 years? He'll speak to us tonight. And then later, was the founding president of the EFF Student Command, Mpho Morolane, still a member of the party at the time of his resignation yesterday? I'm asking that because the EFF says he doesn't appear on their membership system, but he insists he was a member. So what's the story there? He'll come and explain. But first, my comment. So there are several people in recent times that have moved from one political party to the next and the next and the next for various reasons, right? And these people have faced some criticism, and yes, some of it has been fair, but some of it has been simply unfair. Because everyone has a right to associate themselves with whichever party they so wish, right? And we're not talking here about people who just move from one party to the next, like, say, Carl Niehaus, who moved from the ANC to the EFF, or maybe Floyd Shivambu, who moved from the EFF to the MK party, even though his journey really started in the ANC. But he stayed with the EFF and the ANC for quite a long time before making the jump. Take the former Speaker of Parliament, or the Speaker of the City of Johannesburg, Colleen Makubele. She was with COPE. She then moved to SARA, and then boom, suddenly when SARA doesn't perform well, she jumps to the MK party. And this is all in a very short space of time. Here's how she explained her recent move to the MK party.
Moving from COPE to SARA was, if I can put it this way, kind of forced on me because I was fired, from an alliance that we had jointly put together called SARA. And the idea of SARA was to bring together minority parties, African parties, which at the time were in government locally, provincially, and nationally. And the same vision that we had as SARA is what attracted me to MK Party. That's the vision that President Jacob Zuma and the leadership of MK have presented to us since after the election. Their desire to consolidate all the progressive forces, the African leaders, African parties, solidify and unite our voice. So
some politicians make moves for political expediency. Some of them because of the politics of the stomach, if we're being honest. But some people jump between parties because they want power and influence, because politics is about influence and power. Mzwanele Manyi is one person who has moved quite a bit between parties. In fact, that may be an understatement. he moved from the ANC to ATM to the EFF, and now he's with the MK party. So what influenced his move? Well, he was on this show a few weeks ago. This was his explanation.
Me and President Zuma, we died together. I think I'm here to assist His Excellency President Zuma to complete his mission. He was disrupted from a very good job that was doing in government. MK party wants to ensure that South Africa becomes an African country, not an outpost of Europe.
So that's Mzwanele Manyi. What about Bongani Baloyi? He's the latest one. He was the poster child for the DA, running the Midvaal municipality. He then quit the DA to join Action SA. He then had a fight with Herman Mashaba and quit Action SA to start his own party, Shiluva, which performed so dismally at the polls. And now he's abandoned that organization to join the MK party. He held a media briefing earlier today to explain his position. And here's how he's explained it when he was here on SABC News earlier on.
We sat with the leadership collective of Shiluva to analyze these election results and what it could mean for the party. And the decision we took was to scan the environment and due diligence on the material environment, because what was very clear was that the material environment of our politics had fundamentally changed with the emergence of Umkhonto weSizwe party. So as we did our due diligence, we found what we've been suspecting all along, that our strategic thrust and focus and reason for existence is the same with Umkhonto weSizwe party. And we firmly believe that it was incumbent for us to be able to respond positively to the calls made by His Excellency President Jacob Zuma for us to consolidate and be able to work towards furthering an agenda that brings about the full and the liberation and emancipation of black people.
So clearly something is attracting these politicians to the MK party, but some of them are big personalities that clashed with their previous leaders. So are there not going to be big personality clashes in the MK party where some politicians feel entitled to be placed into leadership positions? Yeah? How is this organization going to manage this and ensure there's unity and respect of those in authority? I mean, most political leaders don't want to fade into the background, do they? They want the spotlight. They want parliament. So the question we're asking you tonight is, what do you make of politicians who jump from one party to the next in a short space of time? And given how the MK party is attracting a lot of politicians lately, what risk or advantage does this bring to the party? You can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 078-459-1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending that voice note from. And please keep that at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. Let's begin here, though. Hawks Head Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebeya says the law is closing in on those implicated in state capture. This follows the sentencing of former PRASA executive Daniel Mthimkhulu to 15 years in prison for fraud and forgery after lying about his qualifications. The Hawks will now work with the Asset Forfeiture Unit to confiscate Mthimkhulu's assets. Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebeya is facing the nation tonight. Lieutenant General, thank you so much for making time for us this evening. How significant is this judgment and sentencing of Daniel Mthimkhulu in the context of state capture?
Good evening, sir, and good evening to your viewers. Indeed, the sentencing is important because it sent a message to potential fraudsters that crime does not pay. You may conduct fraudulent activities and be employed in senior positions, continuously faking the qualifications that you have. But then at the end of the day, the law shall catch up with you, and you shall have to pay back all the benefits that you shall have unlawfully benefited from. So that, I think, it sent a clear message. It is not only a sentence of imprisonment. It's actually the 15 years sentence of imprisonment for fraud, as well as the 6 years for falsifying documents and forgery and uttering But because those will run concurrently, indeed, the individual will serve an effective 15 years imprisonment.
This matter has taken long to finally be put to bed. South Africans want to see more corruption officials and fraudsters that are sent to jail. I know there are a few people that have been convicted so far in state capture cases, but when are we going to see more of the officials implicated in orange overalls? Do you have some strong cases that will lead to some arrests soon?
Indeed, we are currently having a number of investigations that we are conducting. You shall be aware that we have already arrested more than 30 accused persons who are now sitting at the various courts in the country. This is only the matters that are handled by the DPCI, a task team that we have put together within. But there is also investigation that is conducted by the ID in the NPA, a unit where we also have provided 15 investigators to assist. So they have arrested more than what we have arrested. So you have got these 30, more than 30 that I'm talking about, and more than this 30 of ours with the ID. So we have already made some inroads in those who are involved in this. And then we are also working on those that are outstanding. Maybe just to remind the viewers of the matters that we are talking about that make this figure of more than 30. You will recall that there is a matter of the asbestos in the Free State, a matter where a number of individuals are currently appearing before court. The latest accused person being the one that was extradited from the United States to come back and join others in South Africa. You have got individuals that have been arrested in connection with fraud and corruption affecting ESCOM. One individual, some of the individuals are currently waiting for trial. And the last individual is currently contesting in the United Kingdom not to come here. But I think he have lost some several applications that he have made through the high courts in that country. So you have got several of these. You talk about the Bosasa that you know, even before the state capture concluded its report, we had already effected arrest on those who were involved in Bosasa and correctional services.
What about VBS? And I'm asking in the context of the Justice Minister, Thembisi Melane. It's now been exposed that she received a loan from someone who allegedly received kickbacks and benefited from the VBS loot, who is actually being charged in court. Are you investigating the minister? Has she given a statement?
Our practice is that we don't mention the names of individuals that we are investigating until such time that the matter is ripe, that we approach them and warn them in terms of the Constitution, so that we give them an opportunity to respond. So in terms of the VBS, you know, we have arrested a number of individuals who are appearing in several courts. Some of their cases have been postponed from August 2024 to August 2025. But a number of those, more than 30, again in this regard, are appearing in court. 3 of those obviously have already been convicted and sentenced. There is a number of those cases that we are currently working on. And indeed, no stone will be left unturned.
But will you be investigating the people that are linked to this man who used to convince municipalities to invest money illegally into VBS that the minister gotten a loan from? Will you be investigating the monies that flowed from him and to other individuals, whether it's the Justice Minister or anybody else who may have benefited from monies that came from him, which came from VBS?
Investigation is a systematic search for the truth. Unless you turn all of the stones, you will not say that you have concluded your investigation. Let me leave it at that.
Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebeya, thank you so much for making time for us. When we come back, Lucky Montana speaks to us. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. Now, former PRASA CEO Lucky Montana has expressed sadness upon learning that his former colleague and friend Daniel Mthimkhulu was sentenced to a direct prison term of 15 years for what he called apparent fraud. Montana says his heart bleeds for Mthimkhulu's talent, but also he is a member of parliament now for the MK party. So we'd like to find out what kind of impact he is hoping to make as a member of parliament. He joins us now live via Zoom. Mr. Montana, thank you so much for making time for us. Let me just start with getting a sense of how politics is treating you. How are things going there as a member of parliament for the MK party?
Well, it's great. It's great to be part of the mighty MK party led by President Zuma. I think this is a party that will lead our people to true liberation, meaningful freedom. And Parliament is great. Of course, I lived in Cape Town for quite a while, I think almost 15 years. I worked as a parliamentary officer, so I'm familiar with the surroundings.
Yeah.
Of course, this is, in as much as I was not a full-time politician, but I remember being an activist from the age of 14 in Mamelodi. So politics is part of my life, and it will remain so probably for the remaining part of my long life.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about politics in a bit. I want to just get your reaction to the sentencing of Daniel Mthimkhulu, the former PRASA engineer. He's going to jail for 15 years now for falsifying his qualifications and submitting a fake employment letter from a German company to bump up his salary. This is a man that you defended a lot when you were the CEO of PRASA. You consider him a friend even now. When you see what has happened this week, do you regret defending him so fiercely? Are you disappointed at all?
Not at all. In fact, well, let me say first, Clement, that I'm on the MK platform, but I'll make a comment on that. I don't regret anything. In fact, I think I see a travesty of justice. I think that, we've read many stories about many people in South Africa who falsified their qualifications. We heard about the white pilot who flew our planes for 20 years. They never went to jail. We heard the story of one of our leaders, Dr. Paulo Jordan, who was found to have falsified his qualifications. None of these people have been sent to jail. And let me emphasize, even though I don't want to go into details, because I think I outlined my position in the statement that I issued, and I agreed with my party that I will not dwell into detail about this matter. But Daniel Mthimkhulu never committed fraud. He may have called himself a doctor, and I spoke to him about that long after I've left PRASA, because he only came out after I've left PRASA. But he's a competent guy. He's highly experienced. And I know that the lies that people have been told that Daniel Mthimkhulu is Montana's fake engineer, brought him to PRASA. I never recruited Mthimkhulu. I found him in Metro Rail before even there was PRASA. But if you want to ask me what a guy, what a competent guy, what Daniel Mthimkhulu is someone who makes things happen.
Yeah.
If you look in the area of maintenance, he has done tremendous things, not only for Metro Rail or PRASA, but for South Africa, for African railways. And I think it's sad, but let me assure you, I've spoken to his family, I've spoken to lawyers, and I've made it clear that I'll continue to fight for him.
Yeah.
My task, my priority in the next week is to see him out of prison and to petition the next highest court so that he can fight this grave injustice. And I'm happy. I'm unhappy, as I said in my statement. My heart bleeds for this young man. Yeah, there are those who celebrate, but let me also say, Clement, that when I spoke about Daniel and said because he's a black engineer, there are many what we call white engineers, people who don't even have, who are not what I call in my statement graduate engineers, who went through apprenticeship. They're not engineers in that true sense of the word.
Yeah.
Yet they are going so hard on Daniel Mthimkhulu. A young guy, was made a contribution. So I'll stand with him till the end. I know that some in the media will make noise, but I'll never change my stance on this matter.
Yeah, just 2 follow-up questions on that, and we move to the MK issues. If he was so brilliant, Mr. Montana, why did he have to lie about his qualifications? And when you say you want to get him out of jail and go to court, what's going to be the basis of challenging the judgment and his sentencing? Because it's been found that he did lie about his qualifications, which you acknowledge. And as a result, he got paid monies from PRASA, which he must also pay back. That's why the Hawks and other law enforcement agencies are working together to try and recoup that money. Do you not think he must be held accountable for lying about his qualifications and that offer letter and for defrauding PRASA?
Daniel never defrauded PRASA. Daniel never applied. He never applied for a position at PRASA and said, I've got a doctorate or I've got this degree. He never did that. He was recruited as a student who was enrolled for an engineering degree. PRASA, or rather Metro Rail at that time, there was no PRASA. He was part of Transnet. They recruited him. And over the years, because of what he is, they promoted him a couple of times. I think 5 times, as a matter of fact, because of his understanding and all of those things. Yes, during that time, someone could argue that he could have completed his degree. And when Daniel started calling himself a doctor, he actually was at the highest level even at PRASA itself.
But that doesn't make it right, Mr. Montana. The fact that you are amazing at what you do doesn't mean you must lie about being a doctor.
But 15 years is meant for hardened criminals. Daniel Mthimkhulu never committed fraud, as I said. So the NPA, recently there was a doctor on Twitter. You recall that the NPA said, we can't charge this doctor because he lied. But there's nothing more to it than that. Daniel never committed fraud. If he had submitted his documents and said, appoint me because I'm an engineer, your point would be valid. But Daniel never did any of that.
He submitted a letter from a German company which was fraudulent.
The letter was genuine. Because you remember that Daniel will not decide on that. When a company from abroad would submit a letter, what will happen as a matter of fact, or as a matter of policy, the HR department will go and investigate, contact that company, verify the facts, and decide whether in terms of the retention policy of the company, whether to retain that employee or let them go. So he didn't do that. So I'm saying that, yes, I think that I'm not saying that it's right to lie, but that is separate from committing the crime that is accused of, and that is why I stand with him. I know that he was quite remorseful on lying, and he realized that it didn't help him, but he didn't commit fraud. He didn't submit false documents to PRASA or to Metro Rail or to Transnet itself. And I think that this is a travesty of justice. And let's ask, why do we have 2 sets of standards in the country for Daniel Mthimkhulu? And let me say it, Clement, as my last point. It is not Daniel Mthimkhulu that they're after. They've sent him to prison. And I've heard in the media everywhere, people have been asking, what is Montana's role? Because this thing is also directed at me. And unfortunately, I've got my own degree. I don't need to lie about what I've done. But those who think that they can come for me they think that Daniel was appointed by me, they're making a big mistake. And I think that for me, I'm very firm, I'm resolute. I'll support Daniel Mthimkhulu until he comes out of prison.
So I had PRASA on the show on Tuesday, and they indicated that they didn't in fact verify even when he sent that offer letter and claimed that there's a German company that wants to recruit him. But in court, the court says he falsified, he submitted a fraudulent letter claiming that he was being recruited by a German company. That's what the court says. And unfortunately, PRASA also accepts that they never, in fact, one, verified his qualifications or even checked if that letter was in fact legit. Now, when you submit a fraudulent letter, you use that to bump up your salary. That is fraud because you do not...
But Clement, that is not true. I'm saying, I listened to the interview you had with the PRASA lady. Unfortunately, she was not at PRASA when this matter happened. I went to court to assist the court. I also took a lady who was in HR who actually did the verification. So it is not true. And I think that when I tried to assist the court, I found the magistrate being extremely hostile, who had made up her mind about Daniel Mthimkhulu. It's unfortunate, but the facts are clear. Daniel Mthimkhulu may have lied about his qualifications, but he never made any misrepresentation. He never misrepresented to PRASA or to any employer that he's got an engineering degree. He was actually employed by people who knew that he didn't have a degree. They promoted him over 5 times when he didn't have a degree. I think it's unfortunate that he ended up calling himself a doctor. That I think is unfortunate. It's not something that I would promote.
What accountability do you think we should hold him to for lying about being a doctor? Because you're saying 15 years is a long time. So how should he be held accountable?
Daniel Mthimkhulu shouldn't be in prison in the first place.
So for people...
That's what I'm saying. I think he has paid the price. I think that he's paid the price. As I say in my statement, that I saw him losing quite a lot of what he's worked for. And I think that society can have different standards. When a pilot says, I put the lives of thousands of people at risk without qualification, and it's left scot-free. When a doctor says, someone practices and say, I'm a doctor, and put the lives of people at risk, and it's left scot-free. And here's a young man who only called himself a doctor. He never made any misrepresentation. And he's sent to 15 years in prison. Not only is that harsh, but it's unfair. And I think that I regard him as a friend, not because I didn't know him until we took over Metro Rail and brought it under the South African Rail Commuter Corporation. And therefore, I think it's unjust. I think it's shameful. This set of double standards is something that we need to fight as a country. And let me tell you, Clement, I'm here. I say at the end of my statement, I do not abandon friends in difficult when they find themselves in difficult situation. I think that Daniel, I will never abandon him, and South Africa must know tonight from your show that I stand by him till the end, and I'll assist his family. I'll work with his lawyers to make sure that he comes out of prison. Then I'm determined to do that.
All right, I'll leave the issue of whether the letter from the German company was fraudulent or not, because when you look at what the court is finding, they're saying that was not a legit letter. But on the issue of pilots, for instance, just quickly, why are you not opening a case against these guys so that they are also held accountable if you know of the details of pilots that have put people's lives at risk? Because even with Daniel Mthimkhulu, someone went and opened a case, which then helps because then we see accountability.
That's not accountability.
No, I'm saying with the pilot, are you not prepared to open a case?
The decision to prosecute anyone is made by a national prosecution authority. Okay? So if there's a doctor who they issued a statement and say we're not going to prosecute precisely because the doctor lied, but it's not a crime. Why the same principle does not apply to Daniel Mthimkhulu?
Which is that doctor that lied?
The decisions are made by the prosecution authority.
Which is that doctor that lied?
I'm saying that there was the pilot, there was Paulo Jordan. You can mention, there's a list of people that
did he benefit? Yeah, did he benefit? What did he benefit because of that lie? In other words,
Daniel didn't benefit, Clement. I think you are not hearing me.
No, I am hearing you. That's why. Hold on 1 second. I am hearing you. That's why I'm saying the issue, because you don't believe that the letter that he used from this German company is fraudulent, and I'm saying the court has found that it is fraudulent, and he used that to bump up his salary. So that is fraudulent.
But I'm saying that is not true. I'm saying to you, Clement, I don't want this for us to lose the focus. We are going to talk about MK, but let me say it for the last time. I went to court, and I was with a lady from the HR department of PRASA, who at that time evaluated the letter. I spoke to the Germans. He asked questions. And in line with what you call a talent policy and the retention policy of PRASA at the time, prepared the documents precisely because they verified that. So if the court said that, the court is wrong in terms of this. And I think that is why Daniel should petition the next court or the highest court and get these facts right. So we can't say something because the magistrate. How many cases do we have in the country where we find that judicial officers have had? So let Daniel also enjoy his legal rights, exercise them, challenge this decision, and who knows? Maybe in fact the highest court may say
we'll rule differently on it.
That's wrong. Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll look forward to that. I know PRASA has already said the head of HR you're talking about is no longer there, and they've admitted that there are certain things that she didn't do right. But back to your role as the MK Party member. Tell me what's attracted you to the organization. What impact do you want to make as a member of parliament?
Well, for me, I think that Mpho Morolane is a major game changer in our country. President Zuma heard the cries of our own people, the cries for meaningful change, and we can see it in the outcome of the results. The masses are not wrong. The masses have clearly said that unless if we champion radical change, unless if we remove the vestiges of colonialism and apartheid, we'll not be able to have social justice in the country. We'll never have equality, and we'll never have true liberation. So Mpho Morolane, when I look at this manifesto, when I listen to what President Zuma has been saying, I realize that he's charting a path of true liberation for the black majority. And I thought I could associate myself with that ideal. Mpho Morolane builds on the sacrifices and struggles of kings and queens against colonialism in our country. He mobilized Mpho Morolane members. So my view is that I think that is building on what this country has achieved, but you also recognize that we haven't achieved meaningful freedom, true liberation for the black majority in the country.
Yeah, and speaking of Jacob Zuma, this is someone who, as you know, I'm sure you know, was friends with the Gupta family. He has always defended his friendship with them. He even said he's entitled to be friends with whoever he wants to be friends with. And I know that you found his friends, the Guptas, quite problematic. You have previously indicated, even at the state capture inquiry, that they attempted to do illegal things at PRASA in the name of Zuma, and you are the one who actually stopped them and even stopped the former president's son, Duduzane Zuma. That's what you had told the commission at the time, that they wanted to manipulate the company's rolling stock program. Are these comments you made then about the Guptas who are friends with the former president, are they not making things awkward with former President Jacob Zuma now?
No, not at all, Clement. In fact, when I dealt with that matter at that time, the one person who supported us was President Zuma. When I briefed him and said, look, I've made these decisions, he supported me at that time. When you see the new trains that are moving around that we call the people's trains, when we had difficulties, despite the fact that the Guptas, in fact, were one of the losing bidders or Gupta-supported bidders, had lost in that particular bid, President Zuma stood with us and supported us. So one of his major legacies of President Zuma is supporting us to make sure that we change the travel experiences of ordinary workers in the country. And he never fought with us and said the Guptas. He said, Lucky and the board of PRASA, you've made the right decisions. And I think for me, it was a principled stance. People were searching for Jacob Zuma lurking somewhere behind these contracts at PRASA.
Yeah.
There was none. There were no Guptas at PRASA, and President Zuma gave us the space to run the business as we should, both as a board and as a management team. And for me, there's no contradiction whatsoever.
Yeah. Are you going to be in Parliament playing a role that will be holding SOEs like PRASA and maybe Transnet into account and providing that oversight? Is that where you'll end up in Parliament?
Well, being appointed by Mkhonto Esizwe in Parliament, one of my portfolios, I'm the lead member in the Transport Portfolio Committee for the party. So I'll be looking at transport, PRASA, Transnet, and all the other public entities. Next week on the 10th, we're having PRASA presenting to us. I'll be asking all the right questions. Transnet just announced the results yesterday.
Yeah.
You remember Transnet some years back, it was making a profit when Brian Molefe was there, when Siyabonga was there. Today, it's running at huge losses, and no one is making noise about this thing. So we'll be asking the right questions because we want to build our country. So transport is my portfolio.
Okay.
State-owned enterprises is what I've been charged with, and I think that would be my contribution.
Yeah.
Not only to Mkhonto Esizwe, but to South Africa as a whole.
All right, Lucky Montana, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I'm looking forward to engaging with you some more in your new role as a member of Parliament. After the break, we're going to speak to the EFF founding president of the EFF Student Command, that is Mpho Morolane. This is the man who quit the EFF just about a day or so ago. But the EFF today is saying he was never a member of the EFF at the time of his resignation. I'll start that conversation with him by just clarifying whether or not he was a member of the EFF. Stay with us. Welcome back. So the question we've been asking you tonight is, what do you make of some of the politicians we've seen moving from one party to the other in a very short space of time? And given how the MK party is attracting a lot of these politicians lately, what risk or advantages does this bring to the organization? Let's start with some of the tweets that have come through. Siyabulela said, Clement, that attests to the political poverty that we're currently experiencing in our generation. This eliticists only care about careerism rather than the constituencies. It further testifies to the fact that politicians can't save us. Mzufukile says those politicians can't be trusted because today they say the opposite of what they said yesterday. They duck and dive when they're being asked about the reason to jump ship. Morales says, in a fluid political climate such as ours, it is inevitable that various political players will hop from one party to the next. In the end, we might see the consolidation of the opposition, which is good for our fledgling democracy. Luvuyo says, as long as they don't change what they stand for, a political party remains a vehicle to achieve a goal. Nothing special, really, about political parties. And Elon says this risks alienating voters and diminishing trust in the political system. Unfortunately, I don't remember any political party that has a law or policy that says it should reject other political parties' rejects. MKP should be careful of who they appoint on top positions. In fact, let's move to this story now. The Economic Freedom Fighters has suffered another blow as its former Student Command President Mpho Morolane has announced that he is leaving the party for the MK party. Morolane, who was the founding president of the EFF Student Command, submitted his resignation on Wednesday morning to EFF Secretary General Marshall Dlamini. He joins us in studio now. Mpho, thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you for having me, and good evening to your viewers.
Let's start with your resignation letter. You submitted it on Wednesday, and then earlier today the EFF responded. Their Secretary General said, you don't appear on the EFF membership system. He said the EFF, and I quote here, the EFF wishes you well as you trace your political home. It's almost like they're, denouncing you and saying you were never part of this party at the time of your resignation. Were you or were you not?
Clement, I'm not sure why should I respond to the administrative challenges of the SGO's office of the EFF. I mean, I saw the letter. It was emailed to me this afternoon. I did not care to respond. Why? Because at least there's an agreement that one is no longer a member of the EFF. I'm not sure why are they sending me an email stating that I was not a member. However, I did give proof to some of your colleagues to show that one was the member of the EFF when resigned. But also remember, one was not just an ordinary member of the EFF. I'm the inaugural president of the EFF Students' Command, and no one can diminish that fact. So they must grapple with the fact that I have left, and as a leader, I had people who were following me. That's why I deemed it appropriate that I must communicate that I'm relinquishing my participation and membership of the EFF. The person who should be grappling with whether I'm a member of the MK or not is Dr. Sfiso Maseko. He's the one who should be asking, and I should be panicking. But I've divorced them. Why do you want us to take back to a divorce and say, no, have a last night together? It's a divorce, it's done. One is a member of the MK now.
Yeah, and just to update our viewers, if you go to our reporter, our colleague here at SABC News, Samkelo Maseko, you'll see that he has tweeted, this is proof of your payment of your membership, right? When you paid for your membership, and proof of your forms that you had filled. This is back in 2020 when you were renewing your membership for the organization. Is that correct?
Look, I don't want to grapple with the administrative challenges. We are now on a new path, which is the Mkondo Wesizwe party. And I should have started, Clement, by congratulating the MK Youth League by performing well at Tshwane University of Technology. I mean, in 9 months, the Youth League of Mkondo Wesizwe, under the auspices of Jacob Gedleyihlekise Zuma, attained 9 seats. So I'm interested in talking about those issues, because that is what is going to shape the future of politics and institutions of higher learning.
And we're going to talk about those issues. I think it's important that we give our viewers some clarity here. What I want to understand is, how involved were you in the party? Are you able to share with our viewers, like, what branch did you belong to as well when you were in the EFF, especially over the last, let's say, 5 years, before you decided to call it quits this week? And
let me date it back before then. Remember, I was part of the central command team of the EFF that was elected in 2020. And I was invited by the commander-in-chief himself to say that, come, because we have deficiency of leadership in the organization. I went. And I said, be cognizant of the fact that one also is the General Secretary of National Association of South African Workers. And we couldn't agree on the modality of me being a full-time General Secretary and also serving as a member of the Central Command team. And there was an agreement that one should relinquish his responsibilities as a CCT member so that I can fully focus on my responsibilities as the General Secretary of a trade union. And I gladly did so. And from the background that I'm giving you, you'll understand that my participation in the organization directly was minimal. But let us broaden the participation of activists in the struggle. You see, that's why the EFF is struggling currently. It's a challenge for them. It cannot be that if a person is a member, for an example, of a trade union, then you say that they can't partake politically. I think that was short-sighted of the leadership, and it will be impossible for them to contest the African National Congress overwhelmingly. Remember, when you talk of the ANC, you are speaking of COSAS, you are speaking of SASCO, you are speaking of the ANC Youth League, the Women's League, the Federation, and the
Alliance
SACP.
partners.
Now, there are responsibilities embedded in those important structures that I've mentioned. And now, Msholozi, Ngamalala, he's saying there must be an expedition of the MK Youth League, the MK Student Command, the Women's League. It shows that those are the parties that are serious in contesting and taking power in this country.
So to be clear, just to understand you, you were not active in the EFF in recent years?
No, but I was active. I'm saying to you that there were people who were coming to my offices to say that they were sent by the labor desk of the EFF. As a general secretary, I can't operate the way the organization wanted me to operate. I'm a full-time GS. I take decisions in the organization. To say that one was not participating, I think it would be short-sighted.
All right. You had indicated to me earlier today that one of the reasons you decided to leave the organization is that, and I quote, we can't continue outsourcing our brains to a leader. Was that your experience with Julius Malema?
Look, you see, and I understand fighters, but fighters are cowards, you know. They are cowards in a sense that they are outsourcing the thinking to the leadership. You saw the attacks that you saw on social media, Twitter. I can tell you they were sanctioned. If you check some of the members of the Central Command team and parliamentarians, they got an instruction that attack, you know, and they attacked, unfortunately, without a proper information. I'm saying if you exist in an organization, people must be allowed to state their issues, to give their views and all of that. Let me give you a practical example. 90% of the fighters on the ground, including 90% of the Central Command team members, do not agree with the messaging. I'm saying messaging on migration. You can't contradict yourself and say that there must be creative ways of foreigners flocking on the southern tip of the continent. Remember, we want to have regulations where we know how many foreigners we have and all of that. Don't I want the United States of Africa? I want it, but not a chaotic United States of Africa where there's no accountability and regulation from our government. It should be political parties championing matters of relegation. You can't abdicate responsibilities and say, no, it must be government and all of that. No, it must start with political parties.
What do you make of how Mpho Morolane has often had a discussion around this issue?
I'm impressed with the articulation of Mpho Morolane, but I'm saying it is not in line with what Julius Malema is saying. Julius Malema says, let's have creative ways Zimbabweans to enter here. Whereas Mpho Morolane says, why not speaking of an open border policy without regulation? For me, it's a contradiction.
Speaking of Mpho Morolane, you had indicated that he should probably run for the position of the party's Secretary General. I think the Mail and Guardian in tomorrow's newspaper, they are running a story that the Gauteng EFF is trying to put a motion that will abolish the position of Deputy President. I'll still go through that story, but it's a headline that I saw. And that would prevent, I suppose, people like Mpho, if they wanted to contest the position. Do you still think he's still good enough to contest one of those top positions? And do you think he will, given how Julius Malema has responded lately?
You know, honestly speaking, one is not interested in talking about the affairs of the EFF. I've divorced them. I've given them a resignation letter. So why must I have interest in who comes as a secretary and all of that? I was clear.
You tweeted it.
No, I tweeted. I was a member when I tweeted, and I stood by that position. If I was there, I was going to stick by what I proposed to the branches of the EFF. And maybe let me clarify something. You see, people think I'm their peer politically. Remember, it's a fact I'm the inaugural president of the EFF Students Command. I'm not some regional a chairperson or regional secretary who will wait for branches and state their position in branches. as a president, there are prerogatives which we have in shaping the discussion in the country. So it was one of my responsibilities, and I was exactly doing that. So I can't be responding to juniors on Twitter saying, no, I'm out of order, by saying I prefer a candidate such as the one I raised.
What role are you hoping to play in the MK party? Do you want to go to parliament?
No. You see, my attraction to the MK is the clarion call of 16 December 1961, that in life, a nation sometimes will have choices, whether to fight or submit. And comparatively speaking, if you analyze the approach of President Jacob Zuma, Malala, you'll realize that he's serious about taking power in the Republic of South Africa, not some people who are contesting elections. And when you join a party like that, you subject yourself to the wisdom of the leader, which is Malala. Remember, we were speaking about the former states.
And this is president. A man, by the way, you led protests.
No, I'm coming there. Let me finish this point.
Yeah.
I'm saying I had a narrative which is very wrong, especially as African people, saying that we can't follow an 82-year-old pensioner. I think that's absurd coming from an African brother, because as an African, when we look at our old people, those are the people with wisdom and guidance. So I'm subjecting myself to that man because of his wisdom. He led the intelligence under the armed struggle. He's been critical in ensuring that there's a liberation.
Your party
of the
called him a
African people.
constitutional delinquent. Why did you lead protests for him to step down? You said he violated the constitution. He shouldn't be president at the time.
The march, when they went to union buildings, I was in the United States of America. I was invited there. I did not participate in that march. And if you check, I never uttered anything untoward against the Malala Msholozi. Now, when he was incarcerated, I'm the one of the people in the organization boldly who said that it will be absurd to celebrate the incarceration.
But back then, I do remember,
President
back then you
Zuma.
did say this man has violated the constitution, he has to step down.
Remember, I'm a member of a political organization. If there's a posture of a political organization, one subject himself or herself to that particular posture. But you can't quote me anywhere where I said Malala is a constitutional delinquent.
Yes, that's a position the party took, but I know you said he must step down because he violated the constitution.
EFF said so, yes.
Thank you so much for coming down through, Mpho. I'm hoping to have a chat with you some more in your new role, whatever it will be in the MK party.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to you
Thank you for
watching the Thursday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back on Tuesday next week at 8 p.m. Thanks for watching. Cheers.